So to connect these shared techniques within the system, to connect these shared techniques within the system, we also need to know several communication types. So through these communication types, we understand the internal architecture at the low level. One of the first one is client-server communication. So it is distributed application structure that partitions tasks between server and client. That's why we call it server-client communication. So how it works? We can see in here simple workflow. Firstly, client sent the request. Client can be, for example, Google Chrome or any kind of the types of the Chrome or mobile or desktop applications. Anyways, its request can be some kind of input. And for example, input includes some kind of types of files or any kind of texts. Anyways, and server receive firstly it receives the request, and this point server starts processing it, and it checks what endpoint is being called, and then runs the necessary business logic from here. In many cases, the server also needs to talk the other internal systems like database or check cached data if it exists. And once all the processing is done and the data is ready, the server builds a response. This response can be, for example, HTML format or JSON format, depends on the application. So client-server techniques is the best for usual web applications, especially sign up, sign in, login, register pages, and etc. Its advantage points are firstly, it's a simple architecture and easy to load or manage the data, and good at consistency. So some drawbacks are server is a single point of failure, of course, because we have only one single server, and it can be bottleneck under heavy load. This is the main types, and this is the main architecture of the client-server techniques. So the next technique is P2P, like peer-to-peer communication. It is a decentralized network. We can see from this architecture, it is a decentralized because network model where individual nodes act as both clients and servers, sharing resources like, for example, files and bandwidth directly with each other without any central authority. It works like, for example, firstly, client sent a request. For example, we have some client and sent to the request, for example, the main node 1, for instance. With, for example, client sent, I need, for example, some kind of file X, and this first node accepts, and it's search from peers. Peers means individual nodes, like node 1, 2, 3, this other load, like the nodes. Instead of asking this primarily to the server, for example, let's imagine we have a server in here. Node 1 searches other nodes, like node 1 asks the network who has a file X, for example. Node 2, for example, has file X. For instance, I have file X. For example, node 2 responded, I have a file X. Node 3 as well. Node 4, and for example, node 5 responded, I don't have any file, that types of the file. So after that, node 1 downloads parts from the different nodes and combine them and prepare it to respond to the client again. This is the main architecture and workflow of the peer-to-peer technique. So advantages of the peer-to-peer techniques are there is no any single point of failure because it's not centralized. This is a decentralized technique, and higher scalability. It means that we can increase nodes and peers as much as possible. Like more users, the more resources. Disadvantages are it's hard to control because there is no any central authority and data inconsistency. It means that ensure that all of the nodes have correct data. This is, for example, file X, but older version. This is also have, but another version. This is difficult to combine the consistent data. This is a little drawbacks. So one of the last and the popular techniques is multi-tier, or we usually call it n-tier technique. So it involves dividing system into several layers, of course, each layer performing these specific tasks. And this technique is usually performed divided into, for example, 3 layers, which are presentation layer. We can call it tier or layer, also the true format, and business logic layer or application layer, and data layer. So we can see in here, client sent some kind of request, for example, in the directly to the firstly presentation layer. Apart from the difference between the other tiers, the clients cannot directly to the database layer, and that user's interface including that layer, like presentation layer, is a UI where user interacts with the application. It sends to request to the application layer after that. And then application or business logic layer is a brain of the system, as we know. It sits between the UI and the data layer. It processes business rules, performance calculations, manages the data transfer between the client and the data layer. So after the send to the data layer, it consists of the DB management system and actual data storage. It only interacts with the application tier to provide or restore the data. That's all. Multi-tier's advantages are firstly scalability, security as well. Scalability is because we can add more application servers to handle more users without changing database itself. Just add more nodes with the communication in the application layer, that's it. And security is for database is hidden from the end user. End user means, as we said, the client never communicates directly with the data tier, preventing direct if we use, for example, relational data models or relational databases, for example, SQL injection or unauthorized access. And some drawbacks, of course, are latency, maintenance, logical complexity, of course. So latency for a multi-tier system, every request must travel through multiple layers. If the, for example, network between the application server and the database is slow, the entire system can also sleep. Even system is broke, even if the database is perfectly healthy, but it's not working. That multi-tiers techniques, the whole systems approach. So conclusion for the communication techniques is a simple way we can say. So client server looks like, for example, small food shop. You order the food, one way to cook it, one way to manage it, one way to serve it, one way to manage the money. Simple logic, but limited. So peer-to-peer looks like a classroom students, like the students share notes directly with each other, no teacher distributed notes. And if you need help, You can ask any students, node 1, node 2, node 3 anyways. Each student can give notes and receive notes. And multi-tier looks like restaurant. You can order the food, waiter takes the order, like the client layer, chef cooks food, for example, backend layer, and store keeps ingredients in database DB layer. So all of the communication techniques depends on the project's demands, of course, users and network flows as well. And the system expands, the techniques become more complex.